and identifying with your performances is something that actually is detrimental to your next performance, because I know from personal experience that when I perform poorly, my confidence would suffer as a person. My self-worth would start to drop as a person. And I think we can all agree that when your self-worth and the way you see yourself drops, and you start to not carry that same confidence, then you can almost guarantee that your performance is going to drop as well. So identifying the person and the athlete as one and the same is almost, it's almost like we talk about a double-edged sword, right? Or gambling on just success, but identifying also that football, as you know, we're both good players. You might get the better of me on one day, and that's not because perhaps I am incapable. That's because you perhaps made a good play and you turned me on Wanderers grounds and you side-footed into the bottom corner, or you made a great shot. I gave you the shot and you picked out the corner from 30 yards. There's something about the external environment that we cannot control. So therefore, when we place our self-worth and our confidence and how we view ourselves as people in football, we've now taken that out of our hands. We're now letting an external environment like football, like sport, which we know is ever changing, and opinions of coaches and opinions of the media and opinions of our peers and teammates is ever changing, and we can't control that. So now we are not in control of our own happiness, and therefore we've actually placed our careers at risk by doing so, right? So obviously, to draw it back to Mindframe, that's kind of what we preach as well. And I agree with you. I think it's important that everyone has their own way to separate, their own way to dive into something that's not football, dive into something that is good for you as a person, and find something to help yourself understand as well that life isn't football. Life isn't all football anyways. It's most of our lives. It might be 85% of my life. But, I have a family. I'm a person. I'm a brother. I'm a fiance to someone and who loves me unconditionally.
.4258 back again, and we're bringing you another episode. This time I got with me someone I don't think I've had on before, where I played against another defender. I don't think I've had another defender on yet. He gave me a couple tough times, throughout the last couple of seasons. I gotta say that. And he's been a rock at the back in the CPL. Today we have with me Matthew Arnone. How you doing, bro?
What's up, man? Nice to be here, and thanks for having me.
No worries, man. So we're gonna get into it. You're a defender. Just talk to me about how you ended up getting into the pro game in Canada, and how was it for you, and how hard was it for you to kind of get a look in?
Yeah, it was. To be honest, it was really, really difficult. At least here in Canada. I mean, if the CPL didn't come, I don't really know what I'd be doing right now. Is the truth. I think as a Canadian, there's a bit of a stigma out in Europe, and in terms of we're stereotyped as essentially not really footballers, and I know this from firsthand experience. I think it's not really considered a footballing country in terms of world football. We haven't really put ourselves on the map, and I think we're making good strides to get there. But my journey was, York University, playing university ball just to essentially bridge the gap between that, being an amateur and when I was finally ready to be a professional. Growing up, I played with Toronto FC Academy. So when you don't make it to the first team here in Canada, when I was playing, it was, Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. And if you didn't make it to those three clubs, then you're kind of on your own. And that's kind of where I found myself. So again, university ball, and then playing semi-professional in League One, which is obviously a step lower than where we're at right now in the CPL. That 2018 season, I kind of got lucky. It was almost a fate thing for me. I feel a little bit destined to be where I am now, just because we played an Italian team, a Serie A team, Frosinone. They came for a tour here, and they played, ironically, my club, and it seemed a little wacky because obviously they're not really looking to play a semi-professional team, but we don't have much else here before the CPL. So we had a match, and I did really well, and drew a little bit of interest from the coach as well, and it turned a couple heads there, and it really made me think that this could be a real shot. So I took that video, sent it to Italy, essentially, in contact with some agents, and and having a contact out there and family out there who played. My cousin played in Serie B, played for Brescia. So he had a couple contacts as well. Yeah. So it ended up being a winding road that I kind of went out there without a plan. Started in the 5th division, trained there for a little bit, realized that the level was a little lower than I had expected. So I jumped up to the 4th division, was training with a team called Vicertena with a great coach, great program. Everything was really, really good. Obviously talking about next season with them and sorting that out, sorting out my passport. Obviously, I'm Italian descent, and I was trying to get my Italian passport so that I would be a domestic player in Europe. And then I got a phone call from Halifax, and everything kind of spun back towards Canada, and I ended up signing with Halifax, and the rest is history. So it was nothing but it wasn't plan A, it wasn't plan B, it was more like plan D. So it's never how you thought it would turn out, right?
Did you ever get discouraged along your journey and think, maybe this isn't the career path for me?
Yeah, a lot of the times. I mean, especially when I graduated from York University, there was a good 2 years where, you know, I had bounced around from, North Carolina FC under 23s who are a USL club and trying to break into the first team, and that didn't go so well. And other than that, really not having opportunities at all. And through that, it was a bit disheartening, obviously, and you battle mentally, right? I think that's the important thing to highlight is that as footballers, we spend so much of our time being footballers that whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch, that you start to lose your own identity as a person. And you start to identify with your performances, with your training sessions and your progress. So obviously doing some sort of finding rather some sort of way to detach was definitely the biggest challenge, and finding a way to find perspective in all of it was I feel the biggest hurdle. I definitely don't think, I mean, you and I have played against each other. I don't think either of us lack in terms of talent and abilities. I think what separates, makes a big difference at the professional level is the mental side of the game, and I struggled with that for many years, and my mental health as a person also suffered as well. And when it comes to confidence and self-efficacy and image and how I viewed myself, it was very detrimental for my career.
Here at 3258, we're proud to present you with the best football-specific content. We work with many companies and many ballers to give you, the viewers, the best content possible. You, the viewer, we're always looking to help you improve your skill set. In order for you to improve your skill set and for us to keep making these videos, please click the link down below and buy some equipment. The equipment helps us run this channel, and also you subscribing to the channel helps us producing more of these videos to help you with your skill set and your knowledge of the game. Thank you for supporting 3258.
Yeah, we'll touch on that a little bit later from the mental side. Any updates on your passport situation?
Yeah, so I came back to, in 2019 when I signed with the Wanderers in May, and the process was completed there. So while I was in Halifax, I actually, to my Italian residence, I got my citizenship. So my citizenship is granted, obviously, and I've had that paper. I kind of haven't done anything for a bit of, I'll blame COVID a little bit, but a little bit was, procrastination, that I hadn't actually put that citizenship into a passport. So I just have to kind of go into the office and show them that, and they process your passport. But funny that you say that. As soon as we came back from the bubble, that was the first thing I did. I will have my EU passport. I am an EU citizen, so that's kind of sorted now. So put it on the back burner because of football again, and because of a couple other things in life. But that's all but completed now.
Yeah, because we both know that is a massive hurdle in Canadian football world. That is something that cliche to say, that is your passport, to international football. Having an EU passport if you're Canadian. So a lot of the players who've come over here, over these sides of the ocean, they've all had those passports, and they've found a way to make it work in their career. So you having that's a big plus, and that kind of gives you a different outlet if you were to ever want to explore, right?
For sure. No, I mean, I had a great experience in Italy, and playing and the football culture, as you know, is something completely different. From England to Italy, I'm not sure, but around Europe in general, I think we can see at the highest levels, and I think it carries through the lower levels as well. And I think it's growing in Canada as well. I think that culture naturally has nowhere to go but up, right? So it's been going up. The culture has been good. We see, you know, Halifax has great fans. Cavalry has great fans as well, and you know, hopefully the other markets can keep up, right? And Hamilton has great fans. So yeah, I mean, it's as a football, you have to be open to exploring the globe, and I got a bit of a travel bug in me as well. So I try to take each footballing experience as another way to explore life, right? And use football to enjoy life, and use football to sort of live my life to my happiest and my fullest, right?
Yeah. So just touching on basically what you just said with Halifax last season, technically not last season, the season before. But how was that? You know, going away there. You know, I'm not gonna say it was daunting. It wasn't really daunting for me personally, but it was enjoyable seeing all the fans there and you know coming out in their numbers. How was that? You know, playing in somewhere. You know, I don't know if it's actually a footballing city or if it's just a sport frenzy city. I don't know what it is, but could you sum it up for us?
Yeah, so I think they're passionate about their city, I think, and anything that is attached to their city. And obviously, they don't have much pro sports. And as a result, when the Wanderers came to town, they were ecstatic and they support, right? And out east, especially, they're very supportive of their teams. And there is not a lot of competition among pro sports. So they came out in numbers, and the energy was, I always say this, that Wanderers grounds is something that, you know, regardless of the team's success, on match day, you have a little extra skip in your step rather than an away match, right? And that's what you want to feel as a footballer, right? And I think that's what a lot of footballers across the world at higher levels experience, right? I think for myself personally, there was an extra little jump or an extra little hit of energy, perhaps in the second half when you don't have your legs underneath you, and that's the key of the environment, right? And if it provides you that 1% boost, then they've done their job, right? And that's what they do, right? And hopefully, you know, we repaid them with football and our best ability to play football. But it was something special. I think the unconditional support, I think, is the thing that blew me away the most. Whether the team was winning or losing, or whether we had blown a lead in the 95th minute and they're clapping us off the field and stuff like that. I know from experience that when you blow a lead like that, or when you have performances or outings like that, usually they just kind of, if you go and clap the fans off, they tell you to hit the showers, right? So it doesn't go too well, as you know, I'm sure as well. So it was something that for me, I felt like that was our true essence as Canadians. I think that was our true essence of what Canadian football can be, right? And that is sort of acceptance and unconditional support. So for me, coming from the perspective of I had grinded so hard to get any opportunity, and then to be thrown in that opportunity as my first, where the stadium's full, and you know the energy is something that, you know, people know me by name, and even walking down the street and that sort of thing it's a small piece of that sort of reciprocal gratitude that I put into the game, right? And it kind of came back towards me, and it was such a great feeling, and it's an experience personally that I'll take with me no matter where I go.
Yeah, I was so surprised, you know, going there late on in the season and everything. And obviously, you weren't doing the best in the league, but the support and, you know, the amount of people who came out, it was, you know, that's something that blew me away. And also, one thing that I was also surprised with is, you know, they're actually very knowledgeable about the sport, or some of them anyway. And you know, I got a couple chants, or not chants, shall I say, a couple things, you know, names thrown at me and stuff. All, you know, light banter and stuff, and you know, they're very knowledgeable on, you know, what they're watching out there, and that's something that is massive for Canadian soccer to grow, right?
Absolutely. No, I mean, like you said, late in the season, it became more and more surprising to me. I think we all know that as you sort of settle into the table, there's less room to move, right? As the season carries on, and we were kind of, you know, down at the bottom, and for them to still come out in numbers and still provide that support, and it was almost like every single game was isolated, right? And it didn't have implications for the rest of the season. So they wanted to win that match, and they would provide the same energy regardless of the implications of the match, or what the 3 points would mean, or what the point would mean for us, right? So it was, again, something that obviously we all missed, I feel, in terms of football in general with COVID, but it was definitely something special that I think Canadian soccer can learn from and use as almost a benchmark, right? And hopefully only go up from there.
Yeah. So, 180, 360, however you want to call it. We go to this season. So this season, you can actually look back in hindsight and say that season before, for you, although you guys didn't do as well as you wanted to, right? For you personally, I rate you as a defender. So,
Put me in the spin cycle a couple of times. I Wanderers ground. Yeah.
but you were good. You good partnership, you and Shala. For you guys and yourself, especially, that was a high to, especially play your first pro season, play in front of that many fans, play week in, week out. And then this season, how is it, number one, not playing, number two, shorter season as well, and number three, being in those confined walls that we were in for 7 to 8 weeks?
Yeah, it was difficult. I think the biggest thing for me coming into the season was providing continuity, right? And sort of doing what I did last year and sort of putting my stamp on the league as to say that I'm here to stay, or that last year wasn't a fluke. And the reality is I really didn't get that opportunity. I think a lot of people, given the technical ability that I possess as a defender, they see the progression, or the potential rather, for me to jump in and play midfield. And that's how I started the first match. And it kind of seemed like business as usual, after the first match and even the second match where I featured, and then kind of it came to a halt. And the reality is I didn't play central defender once. I didn't get to play at the back once in the back line. So I didn't really get to show my stuff. And the reality is it's difficult. It's challenging. Like you said, being in the bubble, everything gets a little bit more heightened in terms of intensity of emotions and those sorts of things, because you don't really have an escape, right? And I think what got me to this level was the perspective and the healthy approach that I had to it. And part of that was being able to step away, being with my family and my loved ones and friends and outside of football. And when you're in the bubble, you don't really get that breath. You don't really get that fresh air to, sort of separate yourself as a person rather than just an athlete. So I think that's what I lacked the most in terms of dealing with that. It definitely was a little bit more challenging and obviously something you're not used to, right? And I think we're all used to playing and we want to play football. So it was challenging for sure. And obviously frustrating for me as well, now that I didn't really get to show myself. And not that I haven't done it in the past in this league, but just to continue to build the sort of reputation that I have in this league, which I think I held myself to a great accountability last year, and I try to hold myself to the same standard this year. But as footballers, we don't choose who plays. We're players. We train and we're available for selection, and it's up to the gaffer who he wants to select. So it is what it is. I try to wash my hands of it and control what I can control. But no, it definitely wasn't easy. And at this point, I've put last season behind me, and I'm looking forward to next season and whatever that may bring.
Firstly, I would presume, throughout your age groups, you've been someone who's started, most games, and you've always played a big part in most of your teams. So, going into this season and, we're in a bubble, do you have different thoughts that you, let's say, for example, you have on the outside? So I'll give you an example. When you're there, there could be a million things running through your head, and you're in your room. You have nothing to. There's no midweek games, where you're flying and you come back home, for example, and then you might have a good training session, and then you get picked for selection. Like, what were you telling yourself when you were there? On how you can get back in the team, for example.
Yeah, I mean, when I was dropped, to be honest, it's never easy, but you understand that it could only be one game, and for me personally, I mean, I thought I accounted for someone who never trained and was sort of let's say a by de facto in terms of a depth midfielder and how I hold, how I carry myself as a starter in this league as a defender. You don't really prepare, and I wasn't really training as a midfielder. Obviously, you try your best to jump in and just do your best, right? So I don't think I gave myself a poor account of what I can do as a holding midfielder. I think it was a decent performance and a decent outing, again, for the first game in almost, 10 months or whatever it had been from last season. I think all things considered, it wasn't a bad showing, but again, you can't control those things. So I think once, like you said, you're playing every 3 days, and you start to think about whether, there's going to be a healthy rotation of players, and load management, periodization, and all those things. You start to factor in, well, even if I may be out of favor, I still will get my opportunity to play. And when that doesn't happen, obviously it's even more frustrating given the circumstance and the format that we went through in the bubble and the tournament style. But I think ultimately what you tell yourself in order to get through the moment is you've done what you can do. You train hard, and you can, in training you're always the first guy there. You're the last guy to leave. You do your prehab. You take care of yourself. Your recovery as well. You eat right. You sleep right, and you perform to the best of your abilities. And like I said, it's not in my control whether I'm picked for selection or not, and whatever extra football factors are in play as to why you're playing and why you're not playing, and obviously what that does to your mind. It can only be a detriment to your performance if you are called upon. So just trying to be ready, and obviously I say this now from hindsight and a little bit more composed, I feel, than I might have been in the moment. But I think the biggest thing is just trying to understand that you still carry value, and remind yourself of that. I think last year, I think it's undeniable what I did last year in terms of how I carried myself, and I don't think that was a fluke. And I didn't get a chance to do that again this year, but I don't lack in confidence. I know that if I'm given that opportunity, I'll do it again. And it's just about finding the right environment for me to succeed and to thrive, right?
Yeah, man, that's good. At least you have no regrets in how you carried yourself and what foot you put forward. So going to the next question, that's on the pitch, outside the pitch. What kind of things were you doing? It could be outside the bubble as well, but specifically in that environment where it's high intense, everything like that. What are you doing off the pitch to take your mind off soccer, football?
Yeah, so I think it was definitely difficult, because even when you're with your teammates and friends and maybe teammates or ex-teammates and whatnot, and you're catching up with them, you kind of seem to always talk about football, right? So I think to put yourself put myself anyways in the best frame of mind, I meditated every single morning. That was my routine. I got up to 30 minutes a day. I've been obviously meditating for a couple of years now, and working on that duration, and the duration has increased to about 30 minutes. So that was kind of the way that I could start my day off with a little bit of positivity. Obviously, I think finding those little moments to detach and call home and have a chat with my fiance. And we had a lot going on back here. We just bought a house actually, so we're trying to sort that out. And a lot of things were back home were pulling me obviously in a couple different directions, which I found to be a healthy distraction from football. And then obviously just finding those little moments, those little symbols of peace and relaxation, whether that be sitting outside and getting a breath of fresh air, or diving into, I have a business that I'm starting and I'm so excited about, and that has taken a lot of my energy as well. So I think those distractions per se, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, are what you need, or sort of the distractions you need, whether that be reading a book or playing some video games. I personally focused my extra energy into those things in order to help myself detach from football. But yeah, it's easier said than done for sure.
Happy that you mentioned your new company that you started. It's called Mindframefit. Am I correct? And
yeah, Mindframefit. Yeah.
Yeah, and were you using some of these techniques from your company, your business that you were doing in the bubble, and how does it relate to basically how you live your life anyway? Yeah,
so the program itself is based around mindfulness, right? And not just as a practice in terms of meditation, but as a mindset or a lifestyle. So obviously the idea of being present, the idea of essentially controlling what you can control, and the idea of essentially putting everything into perspective, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that I would use on myself. I think when I built the program, it was something that I've used every single one of the techniques in order to find what works for me. And I think that's what the program is in itself. So short answer is yes. The long answer is, of course, things like meditation are included in the program, visualization and those sorts of things to allow you to train your mind, or at least to perceive sport or perceive competition, and all the things we talked about, whether that be my challenges personally or the challenges of the group or the challenges in general of our external environment, which was being trapped in that bubble. Allowing yourself to be aware of what you need as a person and as an athlete. So what you need as an athlete to perform at your best, and what you need as a person to keep your mental health high, or your mental health in a good place, so that you can be at your best as an athlete as well.
Would you say, this is a stupid question to ask you because we both know the answer, but to the viewers at home, how are you on the pitch compared to off the pitch as a person?
I mean, you know me, I'm pretty much the same. I feel like I'm the same person. Different in terms of the way I conduct myself on the field. The character traits that I possess off the field are what brought me to the place that I am on the field. So a lot of people are very different on and off the field, in terms of how they conduct themselves, or maybe they're a bit edgy on the field, and they're really not like that off the field. And you yourself, you're a bit chippy, you might leave a foot in once in a while. But obviously off the field, it's different. For me personally, I think this is different, and it's unique to the individual. What got me here was my ability to be who I am and stay true to myself. So as a person, obviously I like to stay composed. I like to be true to myself in the way that I'm always seeking my happiness. I'm always trying to do the right thing, whether that's the easy or the difficult road. And similarly in football, obviously that composure that I carry as a trait in my personal life is something that allows me to, for example, as we parallel it, play out of the back with confidence, as I have, Jordan running at me, high pressing me, and how do I stay composed in a tight space and pass the ball with my weak foot and those sorts of things. So being self-aware of the situation and having that perspective off the field is something that I used to enhance my game on the field. So for me, it's the exact same thing. You kind of see what you get. You kind of get what you see, right, with me, and whether that be as a person or a footballer.
That's a very good point, because I've never actually thought about defenders being so calm and composed, because you're so close to your goal that, you could easily give a ball away and everything. If anything, instead of being so edgy and so aggressive and everything, if anything, it needs to be the other way around, That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I take this approach. I've tried the other way, and I think when we talked about that sort of period between 2017 and 2019, when I really didn't have a club and I was kind of playing amateur football, and I think the biggest thing for me was that, right? And I think understanding the way that the mind works and understanding also the way that your body works is that they're very much connected. And if you lose that composure, and if you do have those sort of negative thoughts or those negative, for me personally, I'm a visual person, so I visualize a lot of things. So understanding that if those things pass through your mind, such as a mistake, the ball rolling under your foot or whatnot, chances are you're prepping your body, and there's a communication between body and mind, that your mind is, essentially going to tell your body that, or prep your body for that exact action, and it actually becomes a reality. So, as we say in Mindframefit, visualization starts in the mind, and it actually turns into an action. So when we visualize our success, it brings us closer to success. And when we visualize failure, unfortunately, it brings us closer to failure. So we need to understand that. And I think that's why the composure works. I think you rationalize better. I think, like you said, it's a game where as a forward, as a striker, you might miss 3 chances, but if you get that one chance, you've had a great game. You've had a good showing, right? You might, if you have 2, you take 2, you have a brace, and you're flying. But as a defender, it's about limiting mistakes. It's about, and how do you do that without thinking about the mistakes? Well, obviously that comes with composure, that comes with calm, and obviously seeing what you do well. And I think part of that perspective comes with being present. And although it might be a routine pass, a 5-yard pass, if I'm present and I'm focused on that one pass, and I can do that to the best of my ability, perhaps I don't bounce it into the holding midfielder. Perhaps I give a crisp pass, and therefore, rather than dealing with something difficult under pressure, they can play a one-touch ball around the corner rather than having to clear the ball away because it's at their neck, So it's something that makes a small difference. But obviously, those 1% is part of the mentality where we can apply those 1% in every single direction, and eventually they'll add up and make a big difference.
Yeah, respect that. Fully respect that. Tell the people watching about your Mindframefit and what you're looking to achieve out of it moving forward.
Yeah, so Mindframe is essentially something like we talked about, is something that I made 3 years ago and started researching and developing as I, at the same time as I took my steps in my career. But it's a mental fitness program for youth athletes. And what it's designed to do is to provide mindfulness to sport and connect the two. So the goal is to improve optimal performance, but only first by essentially calming the mind, putting in the appropriate cues, or now that we have this calm mind, how do we fill the mind with the appropriate cues for optimal performance? How do we get the athlete to focus on what is actually going to make them better? And then obviously that's mindfulness as a practice with visualization, with meditation, and then we apply mindfulness as a lifestyle into things like goal setting, into things like support systems and finding the right support systems, and also just becoming self-aware and having perspective that, putting the joy back in football, understanding why we started playing football in the first place, regardless of the levels we've achieved or the heights we've grown. I think finding that perspective, and then ultimately having a self-awareness that understands that this is what makes me perform at my best. Feeling this way when I performed at my best is something that I need to replicate in order to give myself the best chance to perform at a high level again, right? And obviously, as we talked about, the identity is one and the same. And how do we now separate the identity in order to provide the athlete only with the proper person? And we talked about, hopefully we can bridge the gap between the two. And once we've identified what the person needs, we can then identify what the athlete needs, right? So it's a program, obviously, that we run right now interactively because of COVID. We hope to be doing in-person sessions as well. It's a 10-week program where we explore all of the avenues of mindfulness and how they pertain to sport.
Yeah, and guys, if you're watching, link will be down below in the YouTube description. One thing I rate about Canadians, and I'm so glad that I came to the league, that I've seen a different side out of football and off the pitch, and how people should be, in my opinion, as an athlete. The side hustle. As an athlete, I feel like in Europe, everybody's too boxed in, too focused in terms of, this is it. It's plan A, no plan B, no plan C, no plan D. You guys have your, some of you guys have your degrees. Some of you guys are doing courses and stuff like that. Some of you guys have different businesses, even other jobs and everything like that. Although it's not ideal in terms of, putting 100% into your football, I always believe, off the pitch, you should always have something, even if it's a hobby, that you're interested in, something that you're busy with, taking your mind away from the game. So that's one thing I really rate about Canadians.
I think, honestly, that's a good point. And for better or for worse, like you said, sometimes you can't focus 100% to football, but sometimes that can be toxic, right? Sometimes being and identifying with your performances is something that actually is detrimental to your next performance, because I know from personal experience that when I perform poorly, my confidence would suffer as a person. My self-worth would start to drop as a person. And I think we can all agree that when your self-worth and the way you see yourself drops, and you start to not carry that same confidence, then you can almost guarantee that your performance is going to drop as well. So identifying the person and the athlete as one and the same is almost, it's almost like we talk about a double-edged sword, right? Or gambling on just success, but identifying also that football, as you know, we're both good players. You might get the better of me on one day, and that's not because perhaps I am incapable. That's because you perhaps made a good play and you turned me on Wanderers grounds and you side footed into the bottom corner, or you made a great shot. I gave you the shot and you picked out the corner from 30 yards. There's something about the external environment that we cannot control. So therefore, when we place our self-worth and our confidence and how we view ourselves as people in football, we've now taken that out of our hands. We're now letting an external environment like football, like sport, which we know is ever changing, and opinions of coaches and opinions of the media and opinions of our peers and teammates is ever changing, and we can't control that. So now we are not in control of our own happiness, and therefore we've actually placed our careers at risk by doing so, right? So obviously, to draw it back to Mindframe, that's kind of what we preach as well. And I agree with you. I think it's important that everyone has their own way to separate, their own way to dive into something that's not football, dive into something that is good for you as a person, and find something to help yourself understand as well that life isn't football. Life isn't all football anyways. It's most of our lives. It might be 85% of my life, but I have a family. I'm a person. I'm a brother. I'm a fiance to someone, and who loves me unconditionally. And those are the things too that we need to place energy into in order to grow those things, right? It's just like if you have different gardens, you can't just plant the flowers. You need to water each garden in order to make it grow. Obviously, a silly analogy, but it drives the point home that we need to explore those things, as not just footballers, but as people as well.
Yeah, man. Wise words. I feel like everyone should kind of live through that way in football. If for some people it does work where they do channel all their energy, into in towards the game, and when they go home, they think a lot about it for a very minuscule population of the game. It does work, but I think for majority of the game, unless you're Cristiano Ronaldo, but even him, I see him doing other things off the field and stuff like that now. So, even he can switch off for football, and I see he's a very family-oriented guy as well. So, yeah, I feel like everybody should kind of be living that way to get the best results on the pitch. Lastly, to end it, what are you looking forward to in 2021?
I think just getting back to enjoying football. I think just getting back on the field. Obviously, we've launched Mindframe, so I got my hands full with that, and just like you said, having both and nurturing both, and just this is essentially my passion, right? And both Mindframe and football are my passion, and finding an environment. I think with regard to 2021, and finding an environment where I can succeed as a person and feel comfortable in order to perform at my best. So obviously, this season didn't go as planned, and I think it's just more about now getting yourself in a position where you can feel good about football. You can smile every day when you go to the pitch and enjoy that with your mates, or come home to your family and just enjoy and leave football in where it is, right? And I think hopefully we can go back to a regular schedule, and we can be allowed to do that and go home and detach from football. I think that's the thing I'm looking forward to most. But 2021 is definitely going to be a bright year.
Yeah, man. 100% agree. Okay, that was Matthew Arnone, and this was, a bit of both, talking about football, talking about off the pitch as well, about your mental state. It's important for you, as an athlete, for you young kids watching. You need to get that right. If you have that right, you have every chance in doing what you're capable of, with your talent. So 4258 signing out. Peace.
For more content like this, like, share, and subscribe.